Alright guys, what is up? Welcome back. This is stage 4, week 4, part number 2, last 2 days of week 4. And so then we'll have one more week left, and they'll have the stage finals to crown the 4th stage champion. And then the grand finals will take place a couple weeks afterward. We had some insane matches the last 2 days. Boston beat Seoul, so that basically guaranteed Boston is free and in. Shanghai, they were so close. They were so close. I could feel it. I was rooting them on so hard. But the Mayhem ended up taking that win. It was a very sad day. Mayhem won that one 3-2. I would recommend going back and watching that match. It was very entertaining. And then we had the Houston Outlaws taking down the Dallas Fuel in the Texas battle. The last Texas battle, Houston won all of those matchups this season. We'll have to see if Dallas can get them back next season. So the Outlaws won that one 3-1. It's a pretty good match. And then yesterday we had the Spitfire they got out to a really nice start against the Valiant. They tied and then won the first 2 maps, so they were up 1-0. But then Valiant were able to come back and win maps 3 and 4 to take the series 2-1. Basically secured them. They officially clinched their playoff spot. All they have to do is win one more match of their last 3 now, and they will clinch the Atlantic Division. The only other team in contention for it is the other LA team, the Gladiators. They came back and reverse swept the New York Excelsior. I was super hyped in this matchup. The first 2 maps were insanely close, but Gladiators, they kind of C9'd in both of them. They might have lost either way, but it was really upsetting to see them C9 twice. So I was pretty darn salty going into halftime. But then Gladiators came back. They took a close game on Lijiang Tower to make it 2-1. Then they won on Watchpoint Gibraltar. Had a very nice showing there. It's the best they've looked on Watchpoint in all of Overwatch League. They tied it up 2-2. They went to Nepal, and then they took it 2-0. Gladiators, they're so strong on Nepal. Nepal is probably their best map in the entire game, so having that be the tiebreaker is great. Now, we're in New York at 100%, like effort 100%, preparation 100%. No, I mean, if this was like a playoff match, would I think the Excel would have come out with a lot better strategies, and they would have had like better switches and better comps, and do I think they would have beaten the Gladiators relatively easily? Yes. I don't think the Gladiators are better than New York, but because New York has kind of been trying out new stuff, it leaves the opportunity for teams like the Valiants and the Gladiators to win. The Gladiators took advantage of that and got a huge win for themselves, so I was super happy for them, super proud. They bounced back in a huge way. At halftime, I was like, oh, here we go. They're choking again. This team's had a history of kind of losing themselves fights and matches that they should have won, but they did not do that. They came back strong, and they got their 22nd win on the season, and that put them in really good shape for the playoffs. The Philadelphia Fusion were playing the Shock in the last match of the day, and the Fusion did end up winning that one 2-1. Once again, Shock got out to a 1-0 lead. They tied the second map? Yeah, they tied the second map. San Fran won the first map, and then Philadelphia came back in the third and fourth maps to take it 2-1. So that was also a huge win for Philly. If they had lost that, they would have fallen to 8th, but because they won that, they're still sitting in 6th. They have that final playoff spot. They are one game. I'll do a really quick run through of the bubble teams real quick in the standings. So everyone from 1 to 4 is basically in. Uprising and Spitfire would have to lose their last 3 matchups, but I don't think they'll do that, so I'm not going to talk about them at all. Valiant have pretty much locked in number 2, and New York have locked in number 1. So Gladiators still sitting at number 5. They're 22-15. Their map differential is plus 17 now. Philly is also 22-15. They're sitting in 6th. Their map differential is plus 12. Then Houston Outlaws are sitting at 7 with a record of 21-16, but their map differential is plus 20. So basically, if the Outlaws can tie the Fusion or the Gladiators in records, as long as they don't get 4-0'd in like a match or whatever, they should be able to win map differential. So Houston, as long as they win their matches, they can still do this and they're still in good shape. It's kind of a similar story with the Seoul Dynasty. They're also 21-16, but their map differential is only plus 14. It's not as good as Houston's, so it's going to be tougher for them to make it. But they still have that chance. The ball's in their court, you could say. So the New York Excelsior have locked in the Atlantic Division. They did it a long time ago. Valiant are extremely close to getting the Pacific, and I think they will clinch that in their next match or the one after. So they're going to be the 1 and 2 seeds. It's just how the 3 through 6 is going to shake out. Houston and Dynasty have some tough matchups though, so I would not be surprised if this top 6 is the top 6 that we see. But you never know. Houston has played very well in stretches this season, so it's definitely should not count them out. Same thing with the Dynasty. Dynasty been looking not that great, but you never know in this league. They could come back and still sneak in. So with that out of the way, we're going to go into the matchups themselves for this week. First one, it's the Boston Uprising against the Shanghai Dragons. So Boston, they just won their first match of the stage. They're now 1 and 6. Shanghai nearly won their first match of the season, but unfortunately they fell to the Mayhem 3-2. Boston has been pretty steadily improving. I still don't think they're as good as their stage 3 form. I don't think they're even that close to it, but I think that they are good enough now that they can take care of some of these teams. Like I said, they did take care of the Seoul Dynasty, and I think that they're going to take this one pretty easily. The maps that they're playing on are Blizzard World, Hanamura, Oasis, and then Dorado. I think this is a 3-1 for Boston. Shanghai, I feel like they could take Oasis or Dorado, but they're not very well coordinated on the maps where you have to like attack a point. So I think Blizzard World and Hanamura could be really rough for Shanghai. And because they're going to fall behind 0-2, I don't think they really have too much of a chance in this matchup. They will probably take a map. They've been playing better. But like I said, I think Boston win this one 3-1, and it's not really that close. Not a ton to talk about here. For Boston, it's just keep improving so they have a better shot when the playoffs roll around. Second matchup of the day is between Florida Mayhem and Dallas Fuel. So this matchup means nothing for the not the stage, for the overall playoffs. Dallas is the 10th team in the league. Florida's 11th, so they've both been eliminated for a while now. Technically, Dallas, they're sitting at 4-3 on the stage, so they still have a chance to make the stage playoff if they finish out strong. Mayhem are at 1-6, so they have no chance. I think Dallas wins this one with relative ease. They've been looking like a pretty strong team this stage, and Florida has been looking very weak. I'll just say the maps that they're on are Blizzard World, Horizon Lunar Colony, Lijiang Tower, and then Dorado. So I think Fuel definitely win on Dorado. I think Blizzard World will be a solid hold for them. I could see this one being a 4-0 for Dallas. If it was Hanamura, maybe it would be a bit closer because Florida's good at Hanamura, but Dallas is good at Hanamura as well. So that would have been an interesting one to see. But on Horizon Lunar Colony, I think that on that map, a lot of times the more tanky comp will work better for teams there, and Florida has pretty much never run like really tank heavy comps, and like when they have, they've not been successful at all. Their DPS, like Saya Player and Logix, they're two like hit scan. They're not very flexible. They're both like gods on Widowmaker, but aside from that, they can't really play that many things at a high level. I mean, Logix can Tracer, but Tracer's not that useful. Logix can McCree pretty well, and so can Saya, but McCree's not that useful on a lot of maps. So I think this one's a pretty easy win for Fuel. I'm going to say 3-0. I think they'll tie Horizon. I think they'll find a way to tie Horizon Lunar Colony. Both teams will struggle a little bit on attack there, But in the end, I think Dallas wins this one and keeps their stage playoff hopes alive. Last matchup of the day. Now this is a huge matchup for the playoff picture. We got Philadelphia Fusion. They're going up against the Seoul Dynasty. So, like I said, Fusion are sitting at 6, Seoul sitting at 8. However, if Seoul wins this match, then Fusion will drop automatically to 7. And if Houston wins, then Fusion would drop to 8. So you can just see how tight these teams are. One match could drop them a couple spots. Going into Wednesday, Seoul was 5th. They lost their match. Now they're 8th. So I think if Seoul loses this match, they're basically done. That will put them 2 matches behind the Fusion. If the Gladiators can beat the Spitfire, then they'll be 2 games behind Gladiators and Fusion with only 3 games to play, and that would put them in a horrible spot. So I think they know they need to win, but Fusion's just looking like a much stronger team right now. They're playing on Kings Row, Hanamura, Oasis, and Dorado, and I think this is kind of the end of Seoul. I've been saying for a while now that I thought in Stage 3 they were going to really regain their form, because there were a lot of good signs in Stage 2, but it's just gotten worse and worse every stage. They look dysfunctional. The only teams they've beaten this stage are the Shanghai Dragons and the Florida Mayhem, and I think Fusion take this one. The maps are better for them. There's a better team right now in just about every way. It's 2 hungry teams, but we've seen Seoul come up short in a lot of clutch situations before, and I think that's going to happen again. I like Philly in this one 3-1. I think this could be a 4-0. I don't even see a map here where I'm like, Seoul could take that one definitely. I'll say that Seoul will take a map. I'm not even going to say which one. I think they'll probably take map 2 or 3 and at least give Philly a fight. But in the end, the better team here will win out, and that is the Fusion. Going into Saturday. So, first match of Saturday, another match with playoff implications. It's the LA Gladiators versus the London Spitfire. So these teams have played twice this season. Gladiators have won both times. They're just one of these teams that the Spitfire have had trouble against. They're playing on Blizzard World, Horizon Lunar Colony, Oasis, and then Watchpoint Gibraltar. So, if the Gladiators win this matchup, they will be tied in overall record with the Spitfire. They'll both be sitting at 23-15 if that happens. Now, the Spitfire have a map differential of plus 32, so in a tie with basically any of the teams below them, they're still going to win the tie as long as they have the same record as somebody. So, I don't think London's not in, even if they lose out, they're at 23. That could still very well get them in. But I mean, obviously they want to win matches. And they've been looking better. I was actually impressed with them in their Valiant match. They looked, like I said, they looked a lot more cohesive as a team. I think that their biggest problem right now, which is funny because it's often been the Gladiators' biggest problem as well, their focus fire and their just target priority as a team is terrible. They're at the point now, the last couple weeks, where they're playing these good teams, they'll get a pick to start a fight, and it'll be a 5v6, and they won't get any follow-up kills. And eventually the enemy team will just spin their wheels, they'll stall, their 6th man will get back, and then they'll lose the fight. So I think that it's a huge problem for them. I think that honestly is their biggest problem right now, because on an individual level, Birdring is pretty much back. I think he's had some great performances. Prophet has still been doing great. Gesture has struggled a bit on Reinhardt, but his Winston has still been extremely good. Fury's been really solid. I thought their healers were doing fine as well. Nuss and Bedoshin doing a very good job. Bedoshin, very underrated Zen in this league, in my eyes. So they need to finally just gel as a team. And they were trying some comps that were different. They were trying some triple tank. They were trying Birdring on the Zarya for pretty much the first time all season. And he was getting charged. His Graviton surge use was really bad, but other than that, he was performing well. So I think that is a good sign for London. There's a lot of positive signs for them. but you still have to just worry about this team and if they're going to be able to really challenge some of the top teams when we get to playoff time. Now, the maps that they're going to be on are Blizzard World, Horizon Lunar Colony, Oasis, and then finishing at Watchpoint Gibraltar. Now, Blizzard World is a good map for Gladiators. I believe they've only lost it once. There's 7-1 on it now, I believe. They lost it to the they tied the Valiant on it. So it's a very good map for them. Spitfire, especially on attack, have looked kind of weak here. I wouldn't be shocked if LA full held them on first point, and I think that that's going to really, that if they do full hold, it could really start getting in London's mind. Like, they could start to be like, oh crap, it's Gladiators again, we're down 1-0 against them again, and they might start to get into like a rut. So I think that this is a pretty decent map pool for Gladiators. Unfortunately for them, map 3 is Oasis. It's not Lijiang. Gladiators are a lot weaker on Oasis than they are on Lijiang. They're not horrible on Oasis, but it's just probably their second weakest control point. So who knows what'll happen in this one. I think Gladiators are just looking like a better team right now. I think they've been getting a bit more of like massive performances from their like individual players, like Fissure. He really had a nice match against New York after struggling against the Valiant, so that was really good to see. Void had a horrible match. His Gravitons were pathetic. They were getting eaten, or he was getting like one person with them. He just whiffed like one or two of them on Kings Row that would have won them a fight. So he had a very bad week. His diva play seemed pretty solid. He was getting kills and keeping people alive and just like doing his job. But his Zarya play was very bad. Hopefully he'll have a bounce back week. If he doesn't, I don't know. I'm still not sold that he's better than Bishu. I just don't know. I think it might be a better idea to have Bishu in for every match. But that's besides the point. I think that they'll continue to roll with Void on the hybrid maps and the control maps, and then Bishu on the escort maps and the 2CP. So we'll see how that develops. All in all, though, I like the Gladiators in this matchup. I think that they really know how to play against London. I think that they're a bit stronger as a team right now, and I think that the first couple maps will give them an edge, and they will take this series 3-1. Would not be shocked if it goes to Game 5. But for Gladiators, it's like, a lot of times if they get behind in a series or if they have kind of a rough start, in this stage, they kind of have a buffer. They're just like, all right, let's get to map 5, and then we can just do our thing on Nepal. So I like the Gladiators in this one, and LA, they have a real chance of jumping up to like 3rd or 4th in the standings. So we shall see. Should be a very, very exciting matchup there. Then we got the New York Excel in the next matchup, facing off against the San Fran Shock. So Excelsior, they had their first 2-loss streak of the season. As their 5th loss overall. This will be the first stage where they don't finish 9-1. Shock are also coming off a loss to the Fusion. I feel like they had a pretty decent match, but I think they kind of fell apart. I think they're going to be disappointed that they weren't able to pull that match out. So they're now sitting at 4-3 on the stage. So they really need wins if they want to make the stage playoff, just kind of like the Fuel. And like I said, New York, they're now 5-2. They lost to both the LA teams in 5 games. I don't think they lose this one. I cannot see them losing 3 in a row. I thought against the Gladiators they would be like kind of pissed that they lost to the Valiant, so they'd come out like really strong. But they still are kind of in chill mode, and they might still be in chill mode a little bit this week. But I think they'll still win. Shock is a weaker team than the Valiant and the Gladiators in my eyes. Even though Shock they're a good team, don't get me wrong. They're not going to make the playoffs, but in stage 3 and 4, they've been a strong team. But New York is the strongest team. They're number 1, and they will take care of business in this one. I'll say 3-1. I can see Shock taking Oasis. And if this one goes to Game 5, New York's been pretty iffy on Nepal. So, could the Shock win this match? Yeah, they could, but I don't believe they will. I think New York will lock this one down and get back to their winning ways. And then the final match, of Saturday. Battle of the Green. It's the Houston Outlaws versus the LA Valiant. So, like I said, if the Valiant win this match, they will clinch the division, the Atlantic Division. I said Pacific earlier. They're in the Atlantic Division. They will clinch it if they win this match. They'll also, I believe, clinch the number 2 seed. Well, no, Spitfire could win out and still pass them. But they'll be in extremely, extremely good place. If the Spitfire lose and the Valiant win, then they will lock up the number 2 seed. And they'll get their bye in the playoffs. So, it's an important matchup for LA Valiant. Also, extremely, extremely important matchup for the Houston Outlaws. Their last 3 matches are tough. They got to play the Valiant, they got to play, I believe, Philadelphia, and they have to play New York. So, that's a really brutal stretch. They need this game because you can't really expect to beat New York, even though they have lost 2 in a row. I don't think that will keep up. I think New York will probably finish this stage 3-0 with their last 3 matches. So for Houston, it's like you're a game behind the 2 playoff teams. If you can beat the Valiant here, and if you can beat Philadelphia, you could potentially lose to the Excelsior and still make it. So they're going to know this going in. Unfortunately for them, it's a better map pool for the Valiant. They're playing on Blizzard World, Hanamura, Oasis, and then Dorado. So I'm going to go for an upset on this one. And I don't know if it's a combination of me just wanting the Valiant to lose, but I just have this feeling that Houston's going to win this game. I don't know why. I can't really quantify it. Like, in a lot of these matchups, the Valiant have an edge. The Valiant have looked stronger this stage. The Valiant have looked pretty much like the second best team in the league this stage. In my power rankings, I had them at like 4, I think, but they beat the Gladiators, who I had above them. And the Fusion have lost like 3 matches this stage, who I also had above them. So the Valiant, they've proved it. I mean, the 7-0 record shows it. But Houston, they need this win. They're sitting at 5-2 in the stage. They've played well this stage. I think they'll just be able to, if Linkser can pop off on Widow and really control Soon, which he should be able to because he's a better Widow player than Soon is on any day, or on, I'd say 9 out of the 10 days of the week. 10 days of the week, but 9 out of 10 times. You know what I mean? If you take 10 sample sizes, he's going to win 9 of them on most days. So that's the edge I see for Houston. If they can run like these bulky comps and just kind of bully the Valiant a bit, and just like get some nice push on the payload and really just play the objective really hard, they could win this. If Jake's Junkrat really pops off on defense, we'll see. They gotta not play dive comp. They gotta stay away from that. Just play what you're good at. Use that Zarya and that Hanzo effectively. Like I said, they don't have their good map King's Row, but some way, somehow, they'll take this one 3-1. It's my upset of the week. All my other ones haven't been too surprising. I don't think for any logical person. So this is my one that's like, well, the Valiant should win this one, but I'm gonna say just because they need this one, the Outlaws. If they lose this matchup, they're in huge trouble. So I'd say the boys from Texas are gonna clutch this one out. So there's what I think will happen today and tomorrow. Lots of important matchups here. We'll have a really good sense for like who needs what going into the last week. There's some crazy matchups between teams that are vying for playoff spots. Like you got Houston is playing against Philly. I think whoever loses that one will be knocked out. There's Gladiators versus Seoul. If Seoul can stay in contention until that, they'll have one more chance to knock out the Gladiators and get themselves in the playoffs. Philly versus Spitfire should be great. You got Houston playing against New York, like I mentioned before. Yeah, lots of stuff to look forward to. The rematch between New York Excelsior and Boston Uprising. So I'm super excited. My team, because they pulled off a crazy upset, is in good shape. Philadelphia also bolstered their chances with a nice win. Houston kept pace. Seoul stumbled. What will these teams do today and tomorrow? I will be watching. I hope you are too. Hope you guys have a great couple days. and then I'll be back in a couple days to talk about what teams need to do going into week 5.